Hello everyone, I'm doing a quick video today to talk about some things that we can do to support kids with sound sensitivities or visual sensitivities. So kids that are easily overwhelmed by their environment, everything going on. And if this is helpful, please like and subscribe and comment with any questions. I'd love to hear from you and what's helpful. This video is actually the outcome of questions that I received about this topic. So let's dive in. First, I think about how we can guide a child, and if you need professional support, then absolutely pursue that. This is not a replacement for occupational therapy by any means, and there are a lot of neurological things that OTs can do that I will not talk about here. So it's really important to, if you have an ongoing consistent feeling that you would use or benefit from professional support, please seek that. This is not OT advice or medical advice in any way. So diving into first thinking about how we can guide kids using our interaction. So often we see sound sensitivities and then adults automatically go to controlling the environment in a way that we may not even realize because we're used to being with these kids. And we know that if something happens, kids can easily melt down and spiral, and it can become a pretty quick, significant, intense challenge in the moment. So non-intentionally, we may begin to do things like avoiding any bathrooms where there is a loud hand dryer, or avoiding those places that have a toilet that flushes a certain way, or avoiding fireworks altogether because we know it will be really startling and surprising and unexpected to a child. So when we do that, it's a big external way of helping the child to regulate the emotions around the sound sensitivities. And by doing this, we aren't allowing any of the inside to develop. And by all means, absolutely, we will modify the environment and use these external ways of being at times because that's reality and that's life. However, when we're thinking about it as a child and their own capacity inside their body to regulate their emotions in some way and be able to hear that sound that's coming in, filter it, process it, and make meaning of it in a way that is helpful for them, and be able to go about their day in a functional way. If we are always modifying the environment in a way that they avoid those triggers, so there's sensory triggers, there are emotional triggers, and they're often directly related. So if we have a child that is feeling a lot of fear around the sounds, absolutely, it will take that child more sensory resources to process whatever that sound is. So I like to think about sensory and emotional information as coming from the same cup, if you will. So when that cup is being drained and drained and drained by lots of fear, the shadows are interesting. I'll have to work on lighting for my next video. But I know I won't do it if I do work on lighting, so I've given up trying to be a certain way. It's made life a lot easier and more fun. But side note, I'm getting carried away. So sensory and emotional, coming from the same cup, and really thinking about how fear is a drain on our resources. So if we have this cup full of all of the great sensory processing capacity and all of that great emotional regulation capacity at the beginning of the day, and as we go, it's like things start to pour out of the cup. We get stressed, we get impatient, we feel rushed, we feel urgent, and suddenly we have no resources left. So at the end of the day, everybody's stressed. It's harder to process sensory information, meaning somebody says something in a tone or a pitch that may not typically bother us, but in that moment, it's so irritating, or it's so frustrating, or it's so triggering. So it's thinking about all these ways that we drain that cup throughout the day, and ways that we can fill it, or ways that we can expand our cup and make it bigger, and actually have the capacity for more resources so that we have more to pull from. So let's go back to thinking about this child who is afraid of, we'll say, hand dryers in a bathroom. They are unpredictable. It is uncertain when anybody is going to set off that hand dryer. There's no notice of, okay, Susie, I'm about to turn on the hand dryer. Let's be ready. Let's be ready. There's no anticipation. Somebody goes over, turns on the hand dryer. it's a meltdown. It's unexpected, it's unpredictable. There's none of that helpful stuff worked into it that this child needs. So that child goes from 0 to 60 pretty quickly because the more novel, the more new, the more unpredictable, the more unexpected, the less familiar, whatever the environmental information is, the more resources it will take for us to regulate and for us to manage. So if we think about this as how do we boost that child's capacity to actually process the sound and to feel better, feel positive emotions around whatever it is they're afraid of. So this may look something like helping that child be really curious or interested or motivated by hand dryers. It isn't that we can externally motivate kids, but we can present opportunities for them to get curious, for them to ask questions, for them to explore hand dryers, what they are, how many kinds are there? Can we watch YouTube videos about hand dryers and why they started? Who engineered these things that blow air really fast out of the wall and heat it up and enable us to dry our hands? I mean, it's pretty cool if we think about it. And kids are so innately curious about things, but kids with sensory vulnerabilities have all of these layers and all this baggage that can get in the way because they've been sensitive for so long, or they've been under-responsive for so long, meaning they miss whatever's going on around them. So if they're missing that sound of the hand dryer, they're not curious about it because they're not really processing it and making meaning of it, then of course that child will have a harder time getting motivated about it or motivated or interested by it because they have some vulnerabilities there that are getting in the way. So we think about how to create opportunities for that child in a way that will get them motivated, get them playful, get them interested, get them curious. Maybe it's that we play a hand dryer game where mom is the funny hand dryer, or okay, when you get close to me, I start to go, or whatever it is that that child would be interested in and laugh at or think is playful, but not so much that they go over their threshold. So we don't want them all out of their comfort zone. We want them just inside their comfort zone. Then maybe at first it's the child gets to be the hand dryer in play. So, okay, I'm going to go by. I wonder if I put my hand here, will it go off? Use your affect, use your presence, use your authentic way of being, whatever that is. And I know it can be tough to access that playful aspect, and I have a lot of posts on this on Instagram under the tag Live Life Playfully. They're organized there for you. I also have another video that I'll link here on ways to play or ways to work in play that we might not otherwise think about. So check that out. But really it's thinking about how can we ignite this child's innate interest in this so that they have positive emotions there. And I hate to say positive or negative. All emotions are welcome here. But when we think about it as ways that we can help this child in the moment to really feel excited about this or curious or interested, instead of that fearful way of being that is so wired in their nervous system right now. So kids have these experiences of being really startled and going into fight, flight, freeze mode and being terrified. It really is this big body reaction. So thinking about it as, one, how do we set up some positive, fun, interested, motivating ways to play hand dryer, to get curious about them, to learn about them? Do we make a hand dryer model? Do we make a hand dryer drawing? What are all the different ways that we could design hand dryers if it was up to us, if it were in our wheelhouse to do that? Think about the child in front of us and what would they like? What would they enjoy? What would they be interested in? Because it's so individual with what works, and these are just some ideas to get you started thinking. 2 is to really validate whatever it is that they are feeling in the moment. So beyond this, we don't want to over-validate or really feed into that fear. And I see this can go many different ways when I mention validation, and caregivers might take it as sitting in that emotion forever and ever. And that's not the case. Emotion truly lasts, and the sensational release of emotion, it's really dual linked in the body. So if we think about emotion that's lasting for about 90 seconds, it's really the way that humans are wired are to have an emotion come up and get it out, release it, integrate it, and we're done. Of course, we all know that isn't the case. We can stay there for days and days of being sad and being upset, and there's so many different ways of processing emotion. And it's that we have all of these ways that we have coped to not release emotion because maybe it wasn't safe in our childhood, or maybe there are narratives that are really driving that emotion, and the shame tape that keeps playing of I'm not enough, or I'm not worthy, or I'm pathologizing the sadness in some way. It isn't okay to be sad. I wonder if I'm depressed. I'll always be depressed. This will always be the case. All of these narratives that get built up throughout our lives can really impact how we're able to be present for that pain and have it release in a healthy way with somebody close that we trust, and move on and get back to engaged and connected and the meaning of life. So for a lot of these kids in the moment, if we can help them to find ways to release that fear and to share it with us and to normalize it and say, oh, that is so surprising when those hand dryers go off. That is so surprising. You never know when they're going to go off. You never know what they'll do. They make that loud noise. How does it sound to you? How does it sound when you hear that dryer? How does that sound? Or thinking about ways that we can normalize and say, you know what, I know a lot of kids are afraid of this. I know a lot of kids who have been afraid of hand dryers, and it feels so big, and then they move through it and they can get through it. We can get through it together. Or telling a story about you when you were a kid is really empathy. So I love this little clip by Brene Brown, Empathy versus Sympathy. Empathy is really about feeling or being with them in whatever the emotion is and normalizing the humanity behind it. So it might be something like, oh, I remember I was so afraid of hand dryers when I was a kid. Or maybe you weren't afraid of hand dryers, but maybe there was something else. Oh, for me, I was so afraid of spiders. I just never knew where they would be. And then they're creepy and they're crawly and their legs are everywhere. And that felt so big to me. I remember that. So normalizing the humanity, validating their feeling, whatever it is. And maybe it's a kid that's really sensitive to this. And I have some videos out there about supporting kids like this as well. But thinking about, oh, I know, I wonder if that felt big, you moved away, you ran out of that bathroom so fast. Oh, this is feeling really tough. Let's see if there's a way that we can figure it out. Or thinking about it as validating, normalizing, and getting to the core so that whatever they're feeling, we can put words to, or we can have the outer experience match whatever their inner experience is. So often if we were to say, oh, those aren't scary, don't worry about it, they'll never hurt you, this is ridiculous, this is silly, don't be afraid about that. What that does is it sets up this discord in the nervous system because that child is feeling something truly, truly in their body. Oh, this feels really big, I'm flooded with it. It feels so big that I have to tell my caregiver that I'm afraid, or my body just acted and I was just in fight mode or freeze mode, shut down, deer in headlights, standing there, or flight mode where I ran out of the bathroom. I had to get out of there so fast and get away. So there's many ways that the body can tell us, or they can tell us verbally, that are telling us, great, this child feels safe enough to do this, and they are telling us we're a safe space. It's opening up this opportunity to be with them, present in that emotion and in that sensation. We call this co-regulation. So check out the co-regulation video if you aren't sure what this word is. It's a big word you just heard today. From there, we can think about how to, 3, use our interaction in a way that can guide that child to be able to process that input better. And by input, I mean whatever the sensory information is coming in. Is it sound? Is it visuals or movement or people in the room or lots going on in the environment? So we'll continue with a hand dryer example. So I might say, so one, we had ways to play, evoke positive emotion for this child, get them interested, get them excited, get them motivated. Two is validate and normalize whatever it is that they're feeling so that their nervous system can feel some ease. Open opportunity for what we call co-regulation, which is accessing our calm and our capacity in the moment because they are telling us that they don't have the tools in that moment to do so. They don't have the skill to get. Three is in the moment what to do. So this is where I would really think about what this child in front of us needs again. So often with kids that I know, it might look like getting down at their level, changing our body position. So a big part of co-regulation is changing our body position and our emotional tone, our affect. So if we are saying, if our affect is saying, mine inside is saying, oh dear, here we go again. Oh, he's going to be afraid of the hand dryers. I'm never going to get out of here. I'm going to be late for my meeting. This is an important thing going on. This will always continue. I'm so irritated. I'm so frustrated. I might even feel rage inside because it's so seemingly out of our control and it triggers our own stuff from childhood. It triggers our own sense of being unheard or powerless or helpless or whatever it is. So getting down by that child, first checking our own stuff, seeing if we can regulate ourselves first. That's always a step. Two, finding the ways to use our body and use our affect or our facial expression, tone of voice, sounds of our voice. Can we speak in a more melodic way? Is it more helpful for this child to whisper, oh, uh-oh, Susie, I know what's coming up. So build anticipation. Get down at their level. Maybe put a hand on their body because anchoring themselves in space can often be helpful for so many kids that I know. Some kids really won't like that. Others will. I find that firm pressure is more helpful than light touch. And in occupational therapy, we know that firm pressure is often less pain evoking. So light touch can often be really triggering to a lot of kids and come off a little bit noxious, so painful. But if we use a firm pressure that's saying, hey, I'm here with you, I'm with you, you can get through this and I'm in it together, that's a different story. So getting down, building anticipation, and modifying where we introduce them to this input. So I might start way far away from the bathroom. This is a public bathroom, and say, oh, let's see how fast, let's see how close we need to get before we hear the hand dryer. Let's see, okay, you're the leader, you be in charge here. Let's see, how close do we need to get for you to hear the hand dryer? Then you get down at their level, you're walking close with them. Maybe they're even getting a little bit excited about, when do they hear it? It becomes a fun game or an interesting thing. They're engaged versus being shut down. Maybe that's too much for them. So I might say, even with an older child, I might say, I wonder if it would work if I held you or I held your hand, or this feels so big. What about if I carried you in a piggyback ride? I wonder if that would help us get closer and hear it. I know we can do this, we can get through it. And maybe that's all you do for that day. And then you do go to a bathroom that doesn't have that hand dryer. So the idea is to stay in their threshold, think of ways to use our body as a sensory tool. So we as humans are the most powerful type of sensory input. We can use our voice. We are really visual. We have a lot going on that they look at and they process. And this can either make it harder for them or more helpful for them. So thinking about ways that we can use ourselves to help the situation versus harm it can go a long way. And that is all to introduce some ways that we can help kids with visual or auditory or sound input. Number one was get to that fun, get to the motivation, get to the curiosity, get to the exploration. Kids are natural explorers and adventurers, although there can be a lot of stuff in the way. So if we can help to get this individual child in front of us engaged, we go a long way. Two, get to the humanity, normalize, validate. For all of us, we could probably use more of this. So it's a witness to our experience, a witness to that child's experience saying, hey, this makes sense that you were afraid of this. This feels like a big deal to you. I don't need to understand it to validate that. I can understand because I'm a human and I've been afraid before. Or I've had startling things happen before that I can't control. Three is really thinking about using ourselves as a sensory tool in the moment to help this child. So I would love your questions, your comments, anything you have to follow up with. What has worked for you? Does any of this resonate? I would love to hear your stories. Love to hear how things are going for you and what really helps this video. What bits of information specifically have been helpful or maybe you haven't heard before. Please like and subscribe so you get these notifications for videos on my channel. Would love to have you around. And until next time, take care, everyone.